For years, Slayer's story has been repeated the same way online. Fans read it, blogs copy it, and eventually it starts sounding like fact. But when you actually hear the people who lived it, a lot of that history starts to fall apart. And that's exactly what happened when Slayer's early years, image, songwriting, and even some of the band's most repeated origin stories were put under the microscope. What came out of that conversation was something a lot more interesting than the polished version floating around the internet. It was messy, funny, blunt, and very real. Because according to Kerry King, a surprising amount of what people think they know about Slayer is either exaggerated, oversimplified, or just flat out wrong. One of the biggest myths involves how Slayer actually began. The popular version makes it sound like Kerry met Jeff Hanneman at one specific session. They jammed some Iron Maiden and Judas Priest songs, and just like that, the band was born. But Kerry made it clear the real story was a lot less neat than that. He already knew Tom Araya from a previous band when he was just a teenager. That connection mattered long before Slayer officially existed. At the time, Kerry was trying to find another band to play with, flipping through local classified ads in a pre-internet world. That's how he ended up answering an ad for a band that may have been called Ledger. Jeff was there, working at the front desk with a Les Paul in his hands, already playing the kind of songs Kerry knew and loved. That chance meeting mattered. Kerry realized right away that Jeff spoke the same musical language he did, and that started the connection. Not long after that, Kerry also crossed paths with Dave Lombardo. The first real chemistry between them happened in Dave's garage, where they played together a few times and started sensing that something was there. Then Kerry reached out to Tom, someone he already trusted, and invited him into the mix. So instead of one dramatic moment where Slayer suddenly appeared, the band really formed piece by piece, through separate connections that gradually locked together. Kerry also pushed back on the way people describe his childhood. The common summary says he grew up in Maywood, California, in a rough, gang-heavy neighborhood. But even that, he explained, isn't the full picture. He didn't grow up in just one place. His early years were split between Southgate, Maywood, and Huntington Park. Yes, Maywood had gang activity, but to him, that environment just felt normal because it was what he knew. When asked if there was ever pressure to join that life, his answer was simple. No. The gangs were around, sure, but no one was forcing him into anything. He made it clear that it just was not his thing. Music became his lane, and maybe that helped keep his focus somewhere else. But he didn't paint himself as someone constantly on the edge of being pulled into that world. Once again, the reality was less dramatic than the legend. Another major piece of Slayer mythology involves how the band got discovered. A lot of people have repeated the story that Brian Slagel noticed Slayer after hearing them play Iron Maiden's Phantom of the Opera. Kerry basically dismissed that. He said he does not believe Slayer ever played that song all the way through, and even now, he does not think he has ever performed it from beginning to end. They definitely played Maiden songs back then, but that specific detail does not line up with his memory. What he does remember is Brian seeing them at a club called Woodstock, where they likely played a mix of covers and original material. Slayer ended up on Metal Massacre 3, and before that recording process was even finished, they already had a record deal. That version sounds a lot more believable than the clean little story that keeps getting repeated online. Then there's the topic that followed Slayer for years, the satanic imagery, the dark themes, the shock factor. A lot of people assumed the band leaned into that because they wanted to be viewed as dangerous or evil in a literal sense. Kerry told a very different story. He said a big part of it was simply to be different from the Hollywood scene around them. While so many bands were chasing glam, beauty, and image, Slayer wanted to go in the opposite direction. They wanted to disturb people. They wanted to provoke reactions. They wanted to mess with the crowd that was obsessed with looking polished and glamorous. Kerry admitted that was part of the fun. If people were uncomfortable, if they were wondering whether Slayer was truly evil or just insane, then the band had already succeeded in making itself impossible to ignore. And in one of the funniest parts of the conversation, he basically said the image was designed to clash with the prettied-up metal scene around them. Those bands looked polished, theatrical, almost delicate. Slayer wanted to look raw, rough, and ugly by comparison. Even when there was a little bit of makeup early on, it was not about looking beautiful. It was about looking harsher. That attitude says everything about how Slayer built its identity. It was rebellion not just against mainstream culture, but against their own metal peers. Kerry also cleared up some strange stories involving Gene Hoglan. Online versions of Slayer history have painted Gene as a roadie who got fired, came back, got fired again, and somehow misunderstood what a roadie was even supposed to do. Kerry clearly did not buy that version. He remembered Gene as a friend who hung around and took pictures at shows, not as some major crew member with a dramatic employment history. He did not completely rule out the idea that Gene may have helped out here and there, maybe carried drums, maybe pitched in casually, but none of those stories sounded familiar to him. In fact, his reaction to most of it was basically confusion. It just did not ring true. And that says a lot about how unreliable these little official band facts can become once they get repeated enough times. The interview also touched on songwriting credits, and that's where things got more revealing. One claim said Kerry's first lyrical contribution to Slayer was At Dawn They Sleep on Hell Awaits. Kerry partly agreed with that, but only in the narrow sense that it was the first one where he officially got credit. He said he had already contributed lyrics back on Show No Mercy, even if his name did not always appear for that work. That matters because it shows how early Kerry was already shaping Slayer's sound beyond just guitar playing. He described the process as Jeff working through ideas and Kerry helping build them into finished pieces. So the public credits may tell one story, but the creative reality inside the band was broader than that. Then the conversation got even more interesting when the interviewer brought up one of those overly dramatic descriptions of Kerry's guitar style. The idea that his solos on Hell Awaits and Rain in Blood were meant to mimic the screams of the song's victims. Kerry's reaction was half amusement, half disbelief. He basically treated it like somebody else's artistic interpretation rather than his own intent. He did not deny that his solos sounded chaotic, ugly, or violent. In fact, he admitted his leads were definitely archaic in a certain way. But the idea that he was consciously trying to imitate victim screaming felt like one of those fan-written myths that got dressed up as analysis. That's one of the recurring themes here. Slayer's music was powerful enough to inspire all kinds of interpretations, but those interpretations should not automatically be mistaken for fact. The same thing happened when the subject turned to divine intervention. One online description claimed the album came out of 4 years of Kerry hating life, as if it had been created from some long personal spiral. Kerry immediately pushed back. He said that was not what happened. His real issue with that album was not emotional despair, it was production. According to him, the making of Divine Intervention was chaotic because the band kept getting bounced from studio to studio. They would begin recording in one place, then get forced out and have to move somewhere else. Each time that happened, they had to try matching sounds, rebuilding tones, and recovering the feel they had lost. At one point, they even re-recorded material, only to be forced into another studio again. By the end, the process had stretched across 3 different studios and become a total mess. That explanation is far more grounded than the dramatic he hated life for 4 years version. It shows how easily technical frustration can get rewritten into emotional mythology when fans or editors want a more dramatic story. Finally, the discussion moved to World Painted Blood. The claim there was that the album marked the first time Slayer entered the studio without being fully prepared and that this made Kerry uneasy. Once again, he said that was not exactly true. Some songs were finished before they got there, while others were still evolving. It was not total chaos, and it was not some grand philosophical shift. It was just a more flexible writing process. He even gave a great example with a mere icon. That song did not exist when they first entered the studio. Kerry had a riff, started playing it, and Dave Lombardo immediately jumped in on drums. From there, the song started coming to life in real time. Kerry admitted he was unsure about it at first because the riff sounded too anthem-like for his taste, and he did not want something overly triumphant. But as the arrangement developed, he felt they shaped it into exactly what he wanted. That story shows a band still capable of discovering things in the moment, even that late in its career. And maybe that is the biggest takeaway from all of this. Slayer's history is not as polished or as clean as the internet likes to make it. The real story is more human than the myths. It is built from random meetings, garage jams, scene rejection, rough neighborhoods that felt normal at the time, studio disasters, unofficial lyric contributions, and a whole lot of misinformation that got repeated until it sounded official. Kerry King did not come across like someone trying to rewrite history for the sake of ego. He came across like someone who was tired of reading stories that sounded nothing like the truth. And honestly, that is what makes this so compelling. Because the real Slayer story is not weaker than the legend. It is better. It is more chaotic, more believable, more funny, and a lot more honest. So the next time you read a perfectly packaged version of how Slayer formed, how their image came together, or what inspired one of their records, it might be worth stopping for a second. Because sometimes the truth is not the version that sounds the most dramatic. Sometimes the truth is the version that only the people who were actually there can tell. And before we come to the end of this video, I just want to take a moment to say a very big thank you to all of you for watching. Your time truly means a lot. In a world where there are thousands of videos you could be watching right now, the fact that you chose to spend a few minutes here with me on Hajara Rama TV is something I truly appreciate. This channel continues to grow because of viewers like you. Every view, every comment, and every bit of support helps this community become stronger. And that's what makes creating these videos so rewarding. If you enjoyed this video, please take a quick moment to like the video, leave a comment below, and share it with your friends or anyone who might enjoy this content. Your interaction really helps the channel reach more people who love stories, entertainment, and updates just like you do. And of course, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to my channel, Hajara Rama TV, and turn on the notification bell so you'll always be among the first to know when a new video is uploaded. There are many more exciting videos coming your way very soon, and I would love for you to be part of this journey as the channel continues to grow. I also enjoy hearing your thoughts, so feel free to drop your opinions, ideas, or suggestions in the comment section. Your voice matters here, and your feedback helps make Hajara Rama TV even better. Once again, thank you so much for watching and for being part of this amazing community. Until next time, stay safe, stay informed, stay entertained, and keep watching Hajara Rama TV.